I got this one with one of the geese.
Love the manto. All right, let's see. We're just going online. We got a few people on here. Hello, everyone. If you're here, make sure you ask questions in the chat. Today we're going to be going over back attacks, but more specific in a no-gi scenario. On Monday, we did a lot of details on the cross-collar choke and the bow and arrow choke. Those attacks are not available to us in no-gi, but we have the rear naked choke, and it's important to know all the details of how to get underneath the chin, if someone's being really defensive, knowing how to still attack by trapping the arm and stuff like that. Also working on the reverse triangle. I see a few people are commenting. Happy birthday. Thanks, Olivia. I think Olivia and Aiden are in here. Thank you guys for the birthday wishes. I am now 40 years old.
Into the next decade.
New decade.
How does it feel?
Better than ever. I'm lying. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It'd probably be a little better if I was training on a regular basis and not feeling as sluggish as...
This is the first birthday you haven't trained since 20 years?
Yeah, I think so. First time on my birthday I didn't get a chance to train. But we are going to go over some techniques. So at least I'm on the mat. That's the important thing. So we're going to be going over, maybe what we'll do is I want to go over how we take the back against someone who's turtled. This is a common technique that I teach in class, but I see people sometimes struggle with it when a person is not making the space to throw the hooks in. Okay, so let's look at that. So, yeah, why don't you turn this way? So a lot of times we're here, I have to make sure I'm in the right spot. I don't want to be climbing on top. If I get too high to throw hooks in, he can lift his hips and force me to go forward too much. I want to be nice and low with my one knee even, and the other leg on the outside. Now what I usually like to do is I put the same side knee in this hole. So I might post my hand, put my knee inside, drop down, opening the elbow, and then I get my seatbelt right over here. Notice that when I get this knee in, I'm going to also try to open his elbow up, and I use almost like a hook with my shin right on his thigh, right over here. Now I look for my seatbelt. As I start putting pressure on his head, I start kicking his leg out. And I end up breaking him down right over here. So let's turn in the other direction so you can see what my inside leg is doing. So I'm here, I put my knee inside. I have my seatbelt, and I drop down, kick, and I pick up my knee nice and high. Sometimes I'm able to get my bottom hook in, and then I stay right here. Sometimes I can't get the bottom hook in when I break them down, but I could put the top hook in. Whenever I put the top hook in, I gotta take them to the other side. So I come here, I use this knee by picking it up, and I pull him onto my chest. Then I step on the mat, and I put the hook in.
Which way? This way?
You know what? Let's go back the other way because they can see what I'm doing at the end. The beginning part, I wanted to make sure they knew which knee I'm putting in. So I'm here. Before I'm even getting a seatbelt, I'm going to start putting my knee inside. So post your hand. Put this knee in, nice and strong. Now I come here with my seatbelt. I start collapsing him down, kicking his leg out, picking him up. Sometimes I'm able to put this hook in. Sometimes I can't. So I put this hook in and then I pull him to the other side, taking my foot out to the other side, put the hooks in, and then we can start working. So knowing that is very important because a lot of times we come close to passing someone's guard, they don't want you to pass their guard. They go to their knees to avoid the points.
This is what you do.
This is what I do. But I don't wait. I make sure I escape immediately. But some people, if you manage to take their back, you should be looking for, if you manage to get them to turtle, you should be looking to score with the hook stand instead of the guard pass.
Something it's hard to see what you're doing with that knee, but I could feel the whole opening the elbow.
Yeah.
It's just making a huge difference.
Of course, yeah. The more I can open the elbow, the easier it is to make the person fall.
That's something I definitely don't focus. I'm not focusing on really separating. I'm in there, and then I'm kind of forgetting about it, and then focusing on everything else.
I'm falling back, and then sometimes you feel like the person is leaning away. So if the person leans away while you're falling this way, you kind of sag, get too low, and then they get back on top. But if you get them to open up like this, it becomes easier to collapse this one hip, and then you can start moving them. And movement is what we need in order to take the back. So a scenario from the guard pass kind of looks like this. If I'm here, and maybe I got to an angle where I start passing the guard and Ed turns away, now I get behind him first. I always want to get behind, come inside, and then I start opening that elbow up, getting my seatbelt. Then I start falling in this direction, breaking down to a hip. I'll put this hook in, take him to the other side.
So that's basically the drill you're doing on Monday, kind of a little bit?
Yeah, very similar. So the recovery there at the end is the same as the drill, where we practice going from one side, then going to the other. The person steps over, then we sit him up, take him to the other side, take him to the other side. It's an important drill. That's why it's used in different situations. Sometimes we use it when we're just taking the back from side control. This situation, we're using it after we broke them down.
Were you going to show the response if they try to drop their far hip real quick?
Oh, okay. So this is a situation, you mean when we hop over to the other side? Yeah. So if I'm able to break them down, actually I'm glad you mentioned that. It's something that we can definitely go over because a lot of people don't see this. And I was actually pointing it out the other day on the stream when we were talking about match breakdowns. Let's move this way because we're going to... So of course, if I come in and I break them down to the hip and I can start putting hooks in, that's great. Now sometimes what ends up happening is he starts going to the other side, and what he wants to do is he wants to get his back all the way to the mat, force a scramble, and recover guard. So once I break him down here, when he tries to get up, first I'm going to slow him down, all right, to make him really, so I can get the timing perfect. So when he starts getting all the way up, I put my knee up right over here. Now he tries to drop down, I beat him to it. This hook comes in, and then we continue rolling. And it becomes my bottom hook, and I put the top hook.
This is one of those moves that when you see it live, it looks like out of control, but you're in complete control.
You're in complete control. Absolutely. It does look like, oh, the guys are just spinning around. But when you understand that the person is trying to beat them to the bottom spot, it's a good way to guarantee the back. So let's actually scoot back because that's how we roll. We're already out of frame. So I do have to break them down, whether I go here and break them down, or maybe I got him in side control like this, and I'm about to put my hook in, and he's getting up here. So I have to come here. Now, as he tries to drop to his hip, I roll and put the hook in, falling right here. Once again, I have the bottom hook. I come up, and I put the top hook, and then I can start working.
So easy. Just momentum. That's it. It's just the timing, the window.
Yeah, beating them to it. So they want to do something, you deny them, and then move them around. So now you're basically going back to what you wanted to do in the first place.
And it's just the hooks, they just fall right in pretty much.
The hooks. You don't have to sneak in hooks at that point because they're moving their body around to defend it, and your foot slips in.
This is definitely, like from where you just showed it, that happens in my rolls a lot. Like I know guys that like to get their knees a lot. I'll be in side control, maybe setting them up to try to take the back, and then I want them to run.
Yeah, you almost, and you expect it too because you've rolled with people, especially people who are good at half guard, tend to like do that in order to get underneath them, try to get into the half guard. So you want to avoid it. You want to keep staying on their back, keep them from recovering their guard. So now we're gonna start off with the rear naked choke. And when we start up, I always like teaching it from the underhook side because it's the easiest way to trap an arm. Okay, so let's get back a little bit so that, there you go. So we're going to be here. we're on the underhook side. So right now, we know that the problem with this position is, even if I'm able to get my arm all the way around his neck, okay, he still has both of his hands free to defend and stuff like that. The other thing I have to be careful of is if Ed manages to get his head to the other side of my head, it's over. So I have to know all these things. So the first thing, in order to keep him from escaping, is I make my seatbelt. I put my chin over his shoulder and I block his head from going next to my head. Right here. My seatbelt is going to be closing really tight. The idea is I want to take away his ability to wiggle his head. So if I come here and here, move your head, it doesn't move that much. If I relax my head a little bit, just wiggle your head. Look at all the movement he's got. So I want to take that away from him, so I'm over here. This also puts my hand right by his neck. Of course, he's going to use both hands to defend. So at this point, it becomes the hand fight. So we have lots of ways that you can trap the arm. So maybe today what we'll do is I'm going to go over the gift wrap system that Donner teaches. So this requires cross grips. So if I'm here, what I'm going to start doing is, since his hands are really strong right now, I'm going to start circling my hand to the cross hand like this. And then I pass this to the other hand, and that's how I get this one. Now I have to get the other hand. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll come here, come underneath, grab the wrist, push down, and then reach for the other hand now. So now I have both hands. I push this hand down a little bit. I'm going to step on his hip, climb the foot across, just like we did with the bow and arrow choke, and then I just step right over. I don't want to go over his shoulder because then I'm going to end up with my head too high, and then he can start getting his head lower than mine, circling it to the mat. So I'm going to keep my head here and get my foot right over his wrist. Then I'm going to start hiding my foot right behind his low back. And then from here, it's very difficult for him to get that hand back. This foot is still high. Why? Because I don't want him to step all the way over and escape. So the higher it is, the harder. Now I pass the hand off to the other hand, and I start looking to get underneath the chin. The only thing he can do at this point is to tuck his chin. So I have to make sure I give him nowhere for his head to move. If my head is back like this, he could tuck and even turn and look in the other direction and make it hard for me to get underneath. I have to force his head to almost go in this direction by keeping my head here and here. With my head here, it blocks him from turning and looking at me. So he'll turn a little bit, and then he's forced to come up. And then my hand takes up the space, and I get to the choking spot. All right, so let's start from the beginning. So I have my seatbelt. I'm on the underhook side. I may want to step and bring my foot all the way across, other foot on the hip. Now I start looking for the cross grips. Maybe go 2-on-1 here, and then the other one, and now I'm pulling in opposite directions. It's actually very strong because I'm pulling this way using my lat muscles here. If he tries to pull back, it's very easy for me to hold him in place. If Ed starts trying to 2-on-1 grip or something like that on me, what I can always do is I can just pull it all the way behind his head, and then I start passing. So one more time. If he comes here, I have trouble with this position. I just pull the arms back until he wants to let go. Then my hand goes over his wrist. I pass it over, and now we're in a dominant position. Take my foot over, hide it behind his low back, head forward. Pass this up. Come underneath. I want like just the edge of my thumb inside. Here, 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 keeping my chin forward until I get my hand underneath. Once it's here, I flatten it. And if he's still just resisting, all I got to do is lift my elbow and then come down. Lift my elbow and then come down until I can hide my thumb underneath my chin. So now, this is the last part. This is the only part that he can beat me on. I could do a one-handed. All I do for the one-handed one is pull my elbow over his shoulder. But if for whatever reason I'm unable to finish it, I need to get this arm out. So what I like to do is put this hand down and put pressure on his shoulder. Then he's gonna want to pull his arm out. I pull it out before he gets to my hand, hiding my thumb the whole time, coming straight over, grab my bicep here, grab my shoulder here, and I do the same squeeze on the choke.
Ugh. This is, I mean, you really start doing this pretty recently.
Yeah.
Not everything is new, but there's a couple things like the chin over the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it so that wiggle room. What it does too is you're so tight on this side of my neck with the over.
Yeah.
It's gonna make the guy panic.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure. It's a very uncomfortable position.
And they may make a little mistake and I'll get underneath. Sometimes you'll watch someone like Gordon on someone's back for an extended amount of time, and then he's just so tight the whole time that the person starts doing something, and all of a sudden you didn't realize that they exposed themselves.
Another thing is guys have been tucking their chin. I mean, white belts, no. You tuck your chin, they can't get under it. The coming from the side
Yeah.
is a bit like, the hand, the way you're holding it, but going here instead of fighting at the chin to start.
Yeah,
start
the
all the
entry
way-
point, right?
the
There's
entry
more
point.
space. If you guys kind of understand the situation, if I tuck my chin, I can make it so that there's absolutely no space here. If I try to get my hand in here, I need to get at least, half an inch or an inch? It's very tough.
Even if you do get under, the leverage you have is not.
Yeah, exactly. Coming in this way.
Yeah.
Now, when I come in this way, there's going to be more space here. It doesn't matter how much I tuck my chin here, there's going to be the small triangle. So you're going to get inside this triangle. Then what's going to end up happening here is you turn them so they have to do this. But then my head is over here. It locks me in place, and then I just got to get to here. Now, if the person tries hard to cut in, that's where...
That elbow thing, too. There's no.
Yeah, I think that's a Marcelo Garcia technique I saw him teach, where he was saying up and down, up and down.
It's just a lever. It's just like
Yeah.
you have so much leverage that you have I have a strong neck.
Yeah,
I have a good tuck, but I just can't. There's nothing.
exactly. Because here you come up, and then you get underneath it. Then you just do it again. Once you get in a little bit, it becomes that much harder for the person to get their chin down, and you close up
And
that
then,
space.
especially in no-gi, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to kind of slip it. Once you just kind of fall right into place like a puzzle piece.
So it's more important in no-gi to have an answer for locking them in place and slowly get underneath.
And you, like you said before, you have less options
Yeah.
in no-gi, so you really got to make this work.
Yeah, you're putting everything into this one choke, right? Because you have the back, you're gonna have the one choke. You got the reverse triangle as well, but this is gonna be the main choke you're gonna be using when you take someone's back. Kind of like the cross collar or bow and arrow in the gi, the rear naked choke in no gi.
And then for any move, when you're doing ones and twos, back and forth, if you don't do one, well enough, it's gonna make two even harder to hit. So
Exactly.
as you're going back and forth between, if you don't give them enough for one, they'll just keep defending one. You got to really make them.
Yeah, exactly. They have to. They have to have a reason to.
Over defend,
To over
they have to
defend.
put all their eggs in the defense basket, and that's what's going to open up the next technique to be even easier. 'Cause
Exactly.
when you're like that, I want to just let me just slither down to get my back down this way, because I can't put my back down to the left. The only way I could do is to just get underneath you.
And this is, of course, the problems you have when rolling with someone who's been rolling a long time. Like, maybe if you roll with someone inexperienced, and the first time they get their back taken, they are constantly lifting their chin, and you don't have to do anything. You just go here, you just land in the rear naked choke almost all the time. And you see that even in certain matches when the guys are not as good at defending the back, and then they're getting their back taken, they get choked right away because
They don't spend a lot of time.
yeah, they're not spending the time to defend it, and they're just giving the opening. Then you deal with someone, maybe for years they got their back taken, they're smaller, they're a little bit more slippery, so they just figure out ways to make themselves as small as possible.
Well, I'm not small, but I've had my back taken
Yeah.
a long time.
Exactly. And you have your areas where you're comfortable and you know where you're. And that's the thing. When you know what the person can or can't do, you get confidence, and the other person loses confidence.
This is one of the reasons I'm against body triangles. Whenever somebody body triangles me, I know that their options are really cut down to one.
Yeah.
Really, they could do maybe if they get you belly down, they could do some kind of weird.
Yeah.
But if you're just a regular body triangle, they really only have rear naked. They can't really be dynamic there.
Exactly. And if they didn't already trap your arm, they're going to have to open to trap your arm anyway. So if you just stay patient and make yourself small, the person will get frustrated and open. So that's why I love body triangle because
If you can gain control with it,
yeah,
for sure.
There's no direct escape. You have to open the legs first and then escape. But you also, to attack, if the person doesn't give it to you, you're going to have to use your legs. So that's why I like stepping on the hip, climbing over the arm to trap them and make sure that they can't escape. So we're going to go over 2 more techniques today. So the other technique, now that we understand the rear naked, is going to be the arm bars from the same spot. Okay? And so this is usually when the person is starting to beat you to the other side. Like you didn't keep your head trapping their head and they're starting to beat you to the other side. So we're here. We have the underhook. And now for whatever reason, maybe my head was a little back and then I noticed that he's starting to beat me to the other side. So what I like to do at this point is let go of my seatbelt and reach all the way across to his arm. So now if he tries to put his head to the mat, I'm kind of blocking him and then I'm going to grab the wrist. Now the other hand, I'm going to grab my own wrist and I'm just kind of holding him in place. At this point, I'm going to do the same thing with my legs. I take my top foot, step on his hip, bringing the foot across his thigh, and I get to this position. Now, I like to go over his shoulder, not over his head, because even if I have the flexibility to get over his head, if he keeps driving into me, it becomes hard. So what I like to do is first I come here, then I come here, just like I was trapping the arm. But this is just like an in-between spot. So now, as he tries to drive into me, I steer him to the other side, and then I step over. And now we just have a basic arm bar. We can sit up, break the grip. If I have to go into my control position, or I go elbow deep, underhook the leg, step on his bicep, curl his head, and then I can break the grip as well. Catch his wrist.
I love that grip break.
Yeah.
I haven't got a chance to use it yet because you recently showed me it, but
Yeah, it's a good control position. So I'm here. Now Ed is getting too low, so I'm going to come over here. And I'm just going to stop him from putting his head to the mat. Now I just figure 4. So this hand was underneath. It just goes over my wrist. Other hand catches his wrist. I'm going to step on it, so I'm going to push him down and climb. And then I step over. So now if he tries to drive into me, he's stuck. He can't go any further. And then I just transfer my leg to the other side, and I get to the armbar position. If I want to, I might have to sit up to finish my better grips. If I want to change to grabbing the leg, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch arms, and then I reach for the leg. My foot is already on the bicep. If you notice, my heel and my knee are almost are touching each other, and this leg curls. So as he tries to sit up, I keep him in place, and then slowly I start breaking his grip, and I come to the wrist, into the armbar.
now so this is, a classic move.
Yes.
At one point in time, I don't know, I got it in my head that I was putting the forearm to block the face.
Yes.
You put deep. Is there a difference? Can you use both, or is there?
You can use both. It depends on how close you are to escaping now. So
Okay.
if your head is really getting too low, I'm probably going to have to use my whole
Get your
arm
whole arm.
to block it. If for whatever reason I feel like I'm just attacking the armbar, I can just do that because this is actually really good with the forearm
Just
there.
a nice frame.
Yeah, it makes a
elbow.
little bit nicer frame against the neck. But probably if you're able to do that, you probably still have a chance to do the rear naked.
I use in the gi especially, I'll likely switch for the armbar. even skip the choke altogether. Just kind of throw the arm over and put the hand. A lot of this also is if you can keep my hips down. Like every one of these, you're really focusing on keeping my hips, and I'm not putting my weight on you. My head's not getting too high next to your head. You're really keeping my weight down.
Exactly. So you never want someone's hips too high on your body, because then you're kind of flat and you don't have the ability to use your legs as.
It is taxing too to kind of carry somebody's weight like that, and it's not as much effort for them. It's effort, but you're taking equal effort, if not more.
Yeah. So once you keep them down, you slow them down, and you have the more opportunities to attack the Kimura, well, the armbar really. You're using the Kimura grip, or if you can do the rear naked, stuff like that.
That deep, I don't even know what you call this, frame too. It's kind of counterintuitive because does that feel kind of awkward when they put a lot of weight on your arm when you're blocking them, or no?
It doesn't really feel a lot of pressure because it's kind of a natural position for me to put my arm right here. See how low my arm is? It's still close to my body.
Is it possible to get stuck if they're really just driving into you like that?
No, because what ends up happening is the more you drive in, the lighter they're going to be on their hips, and then you can use your feet to kind of push them down. So you're not just using your arm. You're putting your arm in their way, but then you're doing everything with the foot on the hip, pushing them down. And you start swinging.
Are you posting or no?
No.
You just...
This hand was under, right? So
right.
We're here. So I'm coming here, I'm just blocking you, right? And then I'm stepping on your hip, and then I start pushing you down. And then I'll get the Kimura. Actually, now I'm starting to pull the elbow back now, just like we had it before, normally, you know? So I'm here. I just noticed that in like a worst case scenario, I have to reach really deep and then start climbing. And then I might come to here, step over, and now we're...
Is not pushing the hip at that point, are you gonna have, is that the point of no return? Would you have to abandon it if I start like maybe getting to my knees or something?
Yeah, possibly. There's you may have to go back to taking the back, you know, putting the hooks in, because if you get higher than me, you may spin and end up in my guard, right?
Right.
So you don't want the person's hips higher than your hips. You want them lower than your hips. Anytime I have the back, whoever hips are higher is going to be in the slightly stronger position. And basically the last technique I wanted to go over, which is really, really popular these days, is the reverse triangle. And what's good about the reverse triangle is you have so many more options for submissions once you're there.
Reverse triangle is my nightmare. As a person that hates getting submitted and almost... I pick my submissions. I like to get armbarred, and that's about it.
You will accept an armbar. You'll accept.
You know why? Because if I've been in armbar so many times, it's a very... I could fight from there.
Yeah.
I can make it really difficult on you. I can frustrate. I can make you switch out of it. A reverse triangle is one of the highest percentage moves in my opinion, if the guy's good at it.
Yeah.
I don't know a way out of it. I've been searching. It's a really tough position.
It is tough, you know. There are certain little things you can do, like force the figure four on bottom and unhook and stuff like that, but it's not guaranteed.
It's kind of similar to getting out of body triangles.
Yeah.
Only you're getting choked and your arms are at risk.
And pretty much anyone can get put in a reverse triangle. Not everyone can get put in a body triangle if you're going against someone smaller, right? But even if the person's smaller than you, they can probably lock up a reverse triangle. I can definitely do this to guys much bigger than me that I normally wouldn't be able to body triangle, for example.
This is one of the moves that you really use on bigger guys?
Yeah,
you find
absolutely.
yourself here a lot?
I do like using on bigger guys because once, like even a standard triangle is hard to figure four my legs, but the reverse triangle you kind of do because your angle's a little bit better. So, same position we were before, but this time we're going to be in the position where I did step over his arm, but maybe I went a little high, or maybe Ed lowered himself to here. Now look at the position. What if I try to go for rear naked and he keeps his chin tucked? I don't have the leverage anymore because my head is above his head. And I have to recognize this. So ideally, I would want to lower myself to this position. But if I try to do this and Ed is just reaching up with his arm, he's making himself unavailable to get choked. So at this point, I'm going to want to hug the arm and pull his elbow to my chest. Sometimes I can hug it like this. Sometimes I will grab the wrist as well and just pull it above. And a lot of people will connect their hands, but it doesn't necessarily matter if they connect their hands, because as long as his arm, he can kind of defend it better with his arms here. But once I pull the arm up, he can't really stop it. So now I'm going to move him to the other side, and I bring this foot all the way across. All right, so let's spin around. So once I come across, I'm bringing my foot as high across his neck as I can. And then from here, I'm going to figure four. You can grab your leg. Sometimes you don't even need to. And then I take my foot behind his back. Once it's figured forward, I come to this position. Now from here, all I need to do to finish is I'm going to put downward pressure with my knee for the choke. Let's actually scoot down a little bit because we're at a... So it's downward pressure here. Sometimes I'm having trouble finishing because he's doing this exactly. So now I'm going to hug the arm, pulling his elbow above his head. The other hand, I grab my wrist and I grab my own wrist. And now to finish this, I pull my elbow towards my back and I push his hand downward. So this is my Kimura. Sometimes he has no grip. I can pass the arm around my armpit here, making a C grip at his elbow, and then I just put my elbow behind me right here. I can also just do a straight arm bar just by turning his wrist in this direction. I turn it away from me, and then I use my hips.
This is brutal.
Yeah, real brutal. So, we'll start on this side and we'll go to the other. I'm coming here, he's too low. I'm going to now pull his arm over his head. I take him to the other side, right here. Notice that, like, I'm trying to touch my heel and my knee. Now, if I want, I can grab my shin, figure four, bring in my foot behind. So just for the choke, I can just squeeze. If I'm having trouble, I'm going to underhook the arm, pulling it up. The other hand going to his wrist. So I'm pushing this down as I pull the elbow above his head. This is an important one because a lot of people end up just going like this and allowing his elbow to come out. I want this to happen to him as high as he can. If he has no grip and I'm starting to lose his elbow, I may circle the hand underneath and grab the elbow, and I can do an overhook armbar or just a standard straight armbar. But to do the straight armbar, if I just pull this way, his arm's bending, right? So I'm going to rotate his thumb so it's facing away. I want his pinky facing my chest. And then I'm just going to use my hips against his arm. Then you have basically upper body central there. You got chokes, arms, chokes, arms.
The Kimura still doesn't even make sense to me. Like, it looks like you're doing nothing. Like,
you're just kind of grab.
But it's so tight. I mean, I have tight shoulders, but
yeah.
I mean, even guys with better shoulders than me, it's a really tight position.
It is, and very painful. I guess the idea behind it, the reason it works so good is because you're starting in a position above the head, with the elbows above the head, right? So when you're here, if you notice, like, your hand doesn't have a lot of leeway in this direction at all. So it's like, if my elbow is here, now I have to get the hand all the way behind the body to do a standard Kimura, right? But here, you don't need that much because you're starting with your arms up high. I know that the other day when we did yoga with Lauren was doing all these shoulder stretches, and it's like some of them made me feel right away. It's like, ooh, this is like a tough spot to get Kimura. Oh, speaking of the devil, sometimes when I get Greg in a reverse triangle set up, he escapes out of the Kimura grip before I can lock up the triangle, pushing his elbow. Is there a way to prevent that? Or am I just doing it wrong?
You're just doing it wrong, Lauren.
Yes, you're just doing it wrong. So try something else. No, any type of technique, you got to understand that people are doing their escape, so there are small races constantly. So if you get put in a reverse triangle, if the person moves to the figure four side, that's one thing that's going to slow down your attack, right? So if I have Ed in a reverse triangle, so just as I'm starting to do this, if Ed starts turning this way, now, because my figure four isn't that great, if I try to go for a Kimura, he can bring his elbows close to his body, and my figure four is already kind of weak. He can even start using like a free hand or a leg to start opening.
Well, this comes back to kind of a recurring theme that I'm seeing that I don't do in my own game is you are actively getting the elbow away.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing you do, even before you're moving, right? You're gonna grab that arm, and what happens is everything's in. I can kind of stay safe. I could be comfortable. I could attack my escapes. You know, I could put pressure.
And you're comfortable. You're more comfortable.
This, it's physically impossible for me to.
Yeah, you start getting immobilized the moment your arm's up here. Now it's like for me to get up. Like for example, for me to get up this way, kind of think of it like this. I need this to get up. The moment I do this, now for me to get up, what do I gotta do? I gotta like use my whole body in a very weak position. So, Lauren, what I would suggest is if you're starting to get him in a position like that, is you gotta like start thinking 2 steps ahead. You gotta be thinking, okay, he wants to go this side. I make sure I lean this way. I make sure I pull the arm up and make it hard. And then he's gonna try to move that way, deny him that ability to get up, and then once you do lock it up, you're going to be in the better spot rather than playing catch up. Don't forget, he's a brown belt, you know, and bigger and stronger, so he's got the experience to escape.
It just means you got to do it more right.
Yeah, you just got to be that much better. Think with what he's thinking. You got to put yourself in his shoes and be like, okay, he's gonna do this. It's just like when I have the back, I got to immediately assume the person's going to want to put their head to the mat. If I just deny them of that just for a few seconds, and you feel when the person gives up on one strategy to go to something else, and that's when I start attacking. It's like, okay, they gave up on trying to get the head to the mat. Now I'll climb with my legs and start trapping an arm.
So one thing about reverse triangles in the past, I mean, when we first learned them, big detail was like trying to reach your head towards their leg. Is that still a detail you use or not?
So yeah, you can grab like. The ultimate finish is to grab the leg like that knee bar type position, or even I saw Keenan one time, he just kind of like hugged the leg, and that compresses them. The only thing is I feel that most of the time it's actually the person can avoid that longer, and you may end up falling to the wrong side going for it. So a lot of times I prefer the Kimura as like, I think even though the choke is strong, I think the Kimura is the best move of this.
I for sure agree. And it's like we said, it's the elbow being away. It just makes it so awkward for me to try and escape. And it just feels weak while it's happening.
Exactly. Kind of like in any position, there's always like one strongest attack, and then there's other ones if the person is stopping it. Try to go with the Kimura first, because I think that's the strongest one. If you have to submit the person, go to the Kimura. Same thing if I have a triangle, right? The choke of the triangles is the best one. If the person's posturing out, then you'll go to the armbar, you know? But I wouldn't abandon the triangle to go to the armbar without really giving it a full effort, you know?
I had one more thing. It slipped out. Okay, so we showed when their escape is usually going to be to go to the figure four side. Do you have a thing where guys go all the way to their knees? Isn't that one of the escapes?
Going to all the way to the knees is not necessarily an escape, but it is tough sometimes. Like people lose confidence in their technique once they get up.
Do you finish if they're on their knees, or you try to get them back to?
I'm still pulling up on the arm and putting pressure with my legs, hoping to break them down. There are other, like I can go back to a standard triangle sometimes if you're losing it. So if I have a reverse triangle and I manage to start figure fouring, and then you're getting up to your knees.
So I can only go this way.
Can't go
this way. I'm like kind of stuck in here.
Right. So what's happening is sometimes what happens is I feel like I'm feeling like your elbows are coming in. I'm starting to sag a little bit. So I may look to control
So
here.
you could probably get it before I roll, right? Like
Yeah.
active rolling. If I start to get up, you scoop.
Right.
Here,
I'll be
yeah.
pulling here and underhooking the arm to do.
Because if I'm here now, I'm not. This is a different position now.
Yeah, but now I can do the reverse triangle from guard, where all I do is I just change from here to here, and now I figure 4. And now I have this reverse triangle. And then obviously, if you extend your arm up, I will go back to a full triangle.
So if I get my elbows all the way in, you're just really fighting to get that arm.
Yeah, I'm looking to underhook and pull up, kind of like I'm doing like an inverted armbar, like that underhook grip, and pulling away. But then yeah, like go to so that's the back. That's the reverse triangle from the back, which is the difference between that. So the reverse triangle from the back is here. When the person gets up to their knees, the only difference is reverse triangle from guard is like on my knee.
Oh, so I couldn't see it. So when I start going, you're gonna take your figure 4 out and kind of balance.
Yeah, I'm gonna balance, come here,
Right.
and then once I'm on my knee, I figure 4 here. Now I go back to hugging the arm as I drop to my hip. As you see, the triangle gets tight.
So I assume every triangle is the same. You're trying to point your knees in the same
Yes.
direction.
You want, anytime you're doing a triangle, you want your knees in that direction. So even if it was just a regular triangle, 1, 2, you have both knees here. Reverse triangle, it's the only way you can get the tightest triangle. So the triangle is the space between your legs, right? Some people are confused about where the triangle is. It's actually the space between your legs is the shape of the triangle. The more you turn your knees into it, the smaller the triangle, which is the tighter it is around your neck.
This is why guys almost fall asleep while you're just drilling. You
I
can't do
know.
it full.
I know, can't do it.
Like pulling on the head doesn't exist in your world. If you get your knees pointed, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Pull on the head is like there's only a few seconds left and you got to finish them right now. I'm gonna just pull it. But most of the time, if you can get that angle, they're gonna tap before that.
And it's not that much effort compared to like squeeze.
Yeah.
You know, if you can. The hardest part, I guess, you were showing the detail the other day, is you like to put your foot touching your knee first.
Yes.
Before I don't ever do that, and that's something I
Yes.
gotta do too. I gotta make a list. I have all these things that I gotta do.
I know. So if you guys aren't doing this when you do triangles, guys, make sure your knee can touch your ankle. Because now look what happens when I extend my leg. My other foot doesn't really move, and I get the triangle. Sometimes if I do this, now watch what happens from here. I'm gonna have to move this foot all the way here. Doesn't seem like much, but when there's someone occupying this space, when you start to do this, they open up, and now you end up something like this. And now you're pulling their head, trying to do one of these adjustments, whereas if you were here,
Oh, so that's even more. I mean, you're doing your knee even more than that. I thought it was like just to your foot. You're putting your knee kind of to your ankle.
yeah, you're kind of like ankle to the front of the knee. Because now this foot doesn't even move
I gotta do that.
and locks up. So that's whether you're a reverse triangle in a triangle from guard, reverse triangle from guard. If you're doing a reverse triangle from the back, you always want to try to touch your knees together, heel, ankle, and knee together, and then you just kind of circle. And then you're gonna get the triangle exactly the way you want it on the first try. Hopefully you don't have to adjust. That's the goal.
I hate adjusting. That's where I lose everything.
Yeah, I know, because the person's also trying to like
Head up.
all this they're trying to make themselves as big as possible so you can't get triangle. So if your legs are as close as possible to a triangle, the better, you know. That's why a lot of people, like in the beginning, they go from here and then they go, they try to like do one of these where they open their knees and try to get a triangle. It's like, no, keep this knee already in, extend, and then curl, because this is a strong.
See, that was the original one that you showed, was the extend, and you were putting the back of your knee against the ankle, which is kind of the same thing. This is just taking it to the next level, where your knees are already facing this way.
Exactly,
So
because we know we want to turn the knees that way anyway. Like, I'm just eliminating that one step where it used to go here, curl it, and then start turning this way as you're underhooking the leg. Here, we're already like this. If we can, just eliminate that extra step. Hopefully, when you get the triangle, you're already looking into their year.
Oh, blue belts and white belts are in so much trouble. When I get back on the mat. I'm not doing this one.
This is one that you're definitely going to
Triangle
look for.
I like triangles back in the day. I used to do them a lot more. And
definitely in your lower belts, you used to be like a big attack because you were good from guard, right?
I don't know. What happens is when I was on the mats and I first got my blue belt, it was all white belts on the mat pretty much. And they don't know how to defend triangles, so I got away with a lot more. Then guys like John Hines would never get triangle because now they're like, all right, I'll just stay super tight and I'll over defend triangles. You got to do something else, which I ended up doing. I would just knock them over and try something else, and then now I do that to everybody. I just don't even want to deal with triangles.
Yeah.
But I think I have to because you would tell me even like I don't know 6-7 years ago. You're like, oh yeah, I'm triangling Doyle. I'm like, how is that possible? It doesn't make sense.
It's just the angle. You gotta get it right, even if the guy's really big.
But how? Can't they just posture up? Like, are you hitting in transition? Because you're not just doing a typical
probably
stuff
a little
hand,
bit
jumping over.
Yeah, you're probably getting him in transition. Probably open him up first.
But what's happening is you get it, and there's just never. You're just not letting them get any kind of. It really is this. If you can let somebody do this and then this.
Yeah.
Because if you're like this, you're not gonna posture like. If your hands out in front of you, there's no posture.
Yeah, I know. That's the whole thing. Is you lock it up. You lock up a little bit, right, and then you start spreading them out so that the more spread they are, the less space you have to actually do the triangle.
Have you got a Hellwing triangle?
Getting him to tap in triangle is tough. I've fully locked in triangles, finishing rounds that way, but I haven't get him to.
So there is a limit. There's a limit.
There is a limit, but
he's good. No, he's good plus big equals really, really tough.
Usually end up having to switch to like an armbar. It actually works better on him than triangles. But also he knows his limits and will take those limits to the
max. What about reverse triangle? Same kind of problem, or you can finish him in something like that.
I feel that like I've gotten some reverse triangles on him where he just knows his limits and he knows how to open himself up, and I end up wanting to switch to try to go for something else. But sometimes I feel like maybe I should.
Well, not necessarily choke. Have you finished like Dekamura? Or even there, still he's just.
It's
strong.
pretty rare. It's very hard for me to finish him.
He's strong.
Yeah, very hard for me to finish him. Usually, if I finish him, it's gonna be like an armbar.
Do you think you're missing something, or is there? We just gotta lift more?
No, I don't think so. I think
he's just playing the game well enough to just you're gonna force you to switch and just go to the next position.
I think it's him like knowing how to defend enough, and me just like
the juice not worth the squeeze.
Yeah, sometimes I have to. I'm trying to figure out, where the perfect angle is, and I allow him to escape a little bit. So it's like we're both going, but we're both kind of like.
That's the at black belt. That's the difficulty.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. All right. Well, anyway, guys. So those are the three basic techniques I wanted to work on. We had the rear naked choke. We had the armbar, and why we're using that? It's because the person's almost escaping, and then using the reverse triangle when the person is getting low on us. If you constantly go back and forth between them, you're going to be able to finish a lot, and that's why at the highest levels you're seeing the finishes are mostly happening from the back, especially in no gi.
Awesome. Everywhere when you take the back, it's hard to
gi
get
and
out
no gi,
of the back.
Exactly. So that back is just dominant. It's just like the strongest. If you want to finish someone, if like the money's on the line, get the back, keep them there. You'll win that way.
All these three submissions are approved by Ed.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are I probably do maybe 7 submissions.
That would be a good topic for a podcast, like which submissions are approved by you.
Yeah. There's not many. I mean, there could probably be 10.
Awesome, guys. So we'll be back on Friday on the stream for yoga, so make sure you guys tune in for that. We'll do some Zoom tomorrow. Don't forget to check out To The Death podcast. I was on this Monday. It's a good episode. We'll be getting good feedback. There's more coming down the pipeline, right, Ed?
Mm-hmm. A lot more. Trying to just get more and more guests and talk about more and more jiu-jitsu topics.
Yeah, so a lot of topics that you guys know already. It's like things that everyone has experience in one way, either directly or indirectly. So it's always interesting hearing like talking through these problems or
what
scenarios.
Happens is, I mean, you've gone through a lot of the problems that have existed forever.
Yeah.
and it just it skips us ahead. Like I've
Yeah.
gotten better probably way faster than you got better, and the guys now are getting better
I
way
know.
faster than I got better, and it's all because we're listening to stories and
I wouldn't be surprised if a white belt listening to the podcast now, like a year from now, is going to be like, oh, I remember when they talked about this. Yeah, that's right. And then hopefully it'll help them get past that hump a little bit faster.
not past me though.
No.
They can't have me.
Awesome. All right, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.